Imagine a room where time has not merely stopped, it has been surgically dissected. This is not a bustling museum hall, thick with tourists, nor is it a dusty university lecture theatre. This is a sterile, sealed zone within the Sackler Library at Oxford University. Here, behind secure doors, the air itself passes through a multi-stage purification process, ensuring not a single mold spore can touch the treasures within. The temperature and humidity are controlled with a manic precision, down to 0.1%. On a cold stainless steel table, bathed in the glow of special lamps utterly devoid of destructive ultraviolet light, lies a fragment. It is, to be frank, pathetic to behold. No larger than your palm, its shape is irregular, its edges torn. It is brown, brittle, resembling a dry autumn leaf, or perhaps a piece of compressed mud, eaten through by worms and the slow decay of 1,000 years. To the uninitiated, it is refuse, a scrap one might accidentally sweep into a bin, a shred of ancient waste paper that, by some miracle, avoided being used as kindling in a bathhouse furnace 2,000 years ago. But to doctors Jeff Smith and Brent Landau, who lean over it in protective masks and gloves, this piece of fibrous material is the equivalent of a thermonuclear device in the world of theology and history. These two men have made a discovery that has sent nervous glances between cardinals in the Vatican and forced historians to rewrite entire dissertations. They did not unearth this by digging in the scorching sands of the Valley of the Kings. Their excavation took place in arguably the most mundane place on Earth, an archive. In forgotten, dust-caked boxes from the Egypt Exploration Society that had sat unopened for more than a century. And they found this. A text believed to have been lost forever. A text the official church branded a most dangerous heresy, and one it tried to physically erase from the face of the earth for over 1,500 years. But the most shocking part was not that the papyrus was simply found. It was the name under which it was written. On a high-resolution monitor connected to an electron microscope, Greek letters emerged through the veil of centuries. This was not a parable. It was not a retelling. It was direct speech, first person, singular. I, Jesus. This wasn't a quote from the Gospel of Mark or Luke. This was a letter, a personal, direct, radically contradict everything we have ever been taught. The world was now faced with a document that scholars, in hushed tones, call the Great Missing Link. If this papyrus is genuine, and the unyielding verdict of radiocarbon dating states the ink dried precisely as Christianity was being born, then we are holding the unfiltered voice of the most famous human being in all of history. A voice, silent for 2,000 years. What was it trying to say? Why was this letter hidden so securely that it has only now, in our time, been brought into the light? And why does its content send a tremor of fear through the very foundations of traditional religious institutions? To truly grasp the scale of this upheaval, one must first confront a simple yet profoundly unsettling fact. Jesus of Nazareth, the man who divided human history into before and after, whose name is invoked by billions, left behind not a single written line. Nothing. It is the central paradox of Western civilization. Consider this. We possess the campaign journals of philosophical treatises of Plato, the medical records of Hippocrates. We can access the intimate thoughts of men who lived hundreds of years before the Christ. Yet from Jesus himself, there is only silence. An absolute void. No diaries, no notes, no letters to his mother, no written instructions for his disciples.
For centuries, historians have chanted the same mantra. He was an oral preacher, an itinerant rabbi in the Judean tradition. He taught, but he did not write, entrusting his message to Dacian that seemed unshakable. And then, suddenly, that foundation develops a catastrophic fracture. The discovery, deep within the archives at Oxford, is not merely a new document. It is a violation of the established rules of the game. It is akin to finding the lost autobiography of Socrates, another giant of history who, on principle, never wrote anything down.
If Jesus did indeed write letters, it changes everything. It transforms him from a mythologized, almost ethereal figure into a real human being of flesh and blood. A man with a distinct handwriting, a man with a style of prose, a demonstrable level of literacy, and most importantly, a man with private intentions. Intentions he did not entrust to the multitude on the mount, but only to the fragile surface of a papyrus scroll. What if he wrote the things that could not be spoken aloud?
To Rome. It takes us east, to the volatile frontier between two great empires, to the ancient city of Edessa, now Şanlıurfa in modern-day Turkey. It was there, according to a legend long dismissed as a beautiful Oriental fairy tale, that the original of this letter was kept. The storbulously wealthy buffer kingdom of Osrhoene. Its ruler, King Abgar V Ukama, a name which translates simply as the Black, is dying. He is, by all accounts, rotting alive. The sources diverge on the diagnosis. Some speak of a terrifying form of leprosy, others of a crippling gout that had turned his life into a living hell. The finest physicians of the East were powerless. The court magicians and priests were useless. The king was a prisoner in his own palace, awaiting the inevitable end. But then, carried on the desert winds with the trade caravans, came whispers. Rumors of a young miracle worker from Judea, a man who could walk on water, raise the dead, and with a single touch, cleanse the leper. For a king entombed by his own flesh, such a rumor was not merely a story. It was the last, desperate possibility of a dawn in his endless night. In the borderlands of the Roman Empire, where desert sands met the Fertile Crescent, ruled a king named Abgar V. He was not a monarch of legend, but a man of flesh and blood, a pragmatist who governed the small but strategic city-state of Edessa. And he was dying. A torment that defied his physicians, a slow decay that mocked his royal authority, had taken root in his body. Abgar, however, was not a man to wait passively for a miracle. He decided to commission one. He had heard whispers carried on the trade winds, stories of a healer in Judea, a man whose touch was said to mend the incurable. So, in an act of extraordinary political calculus, he composed an official diplomatic letter. This was no humble prayer scrawled by a desperate soul. It was a formal business proposal, a state-to-state correspondence addressed to the divine. He entrusted this unprecedented message to his most capable agent, the archivist Hanan, and dispatched him on the long road to Jerusalem.
The letter, as later recorded, was a masterpiece of diplomacy.
Abgar, ruler of Edessa, to Jesus, the good Savior, it began. I have heard of you and of your healings. Therefore I have written to beg that you trouble yourself to come to me and heal the disease which I suffer. For I have heard also that the Jews murmur against you and wish to do you harm. My city is very small, but it is a venerable one, and it is sufficient for us, both. It was an offer of sanctuary, a political asylum in exchange for a cure, a king offering to share his kingdom. For centuries, this story was preserved by one man, Eusebius, the father of church history. In the 4th century, he staked his formidable reputation on the claim that he had personally been to the archives of Edessa. He swore he had seen the original letters, Abgar's plea and Jesus' purported reply, written in their native Syriac, and had translated them himself. But after Eusebius, the trail went cold. No one ever saw the physical documents again. Skeptics for over a millennium scoffed. It was a pious forgery, they argued, a clever piece of propaganda designed to elevate Edessa's status as the world's first Christian kingdom. A myth.
But then, from a dusty collection at Oxford, a fragment of Greek papyrus emerged, and the status of this story shifted from pious legend to material evidence. To the naked eye, it was less than nothing, and bled into the very fibers of the plant-based paper. The human eye saw only meaningless stain.
To unlock its secrets, science turned to a technology born from military satellite reconnaissance and the high-stakes world of art authentication. Multispectral imaging, or MSI, and absorbs light in a unique way. The ink used in the 1st and 2nd centuries was a simple carbon-based compound of soot and gum arabic, a resin from the acacia tree. This humble mixture possesses a unique light signature, especially in the infrared spectrum, that is entirely distinct from the vegetable fibers of the papyrus it rests on. Scientists placed the fragile fragment into a sealed chamber and began a painstaking process of digital archaeology. They captured thousands of snapshots, each in a different razor-thin slice of the light spectrum, from the harshest ultraviolet to the deepest infrared. Then, a powerful computer algorithm went to work, layering these thousands of images one on top of the other. It digitally amplified the unique signature of the carbon-based ink, while simultaneously suppressing the visual noise of the papyrus texture, the stains, and the damage of time. The result that bloomed on the laboratory screen caused a palpable shock among those present. The grime of ages simply vanished. Where there had been smudges, there now appeared crisp, evenly spaced lines of black Greek uncial script. It was the hand of a professional scribe, clear and practiced. But the language itself, the style of dictation, was something else entirely. The phrasing was filled with Semitic turns of phrase, Aramaic words, and grammatical structures hiding just beneath the surface of the Greek. It was the ghost of a mother tongue, the unmistakable echo of a speaker for whom Aramaic, not Greek, was the language of thought, of feeling, of life. The text confirmed Eusebius's account, but it also contained details the historian had omitted. Details that transformed a simple, polite refusal into something more akin to an instruction, a promise of knowledge to be passed on after the sender was gone. The king's letter, once dismissed as a fable, had found its voice again. It reminds us that history is not a static monument, but a living thing, with whispers still trapped in the artifacts we discard, waiting for the right light to bring them back into our world. The Greek was a phantom, a thin veil barely concealing the true language beneath. Every turn of phrase, every grammatical construction pointed to a single, startling conclusion. The author was a native Aramaic speaker, one who spoke with an immense, almost unnerving authority. The linguistic forensics told an undeniable story. The sentence structures mirrored the most archaic layers of the Gospel of Mark and echoed the hypothetical lost Gospel, the collection of sayings known only as Q. We were looking at a text that had been dictated, captured in ink by a scribe listening to a voice accustomed to absolute, silent obedience.
To understand the explosive nature of this document, to feel its true weight, we must travel back in time. The year is 1945. We are in Upper Egypt, near the towering cliffs of Jabal al-Tarif. Two local farmers, Muhammad Ali al-Saman and his brother,
are digging in the soft, dark earth at the base of the mountain, searching for sabak, a nitrate-rich soil to fertilize their crops. Their work is routine, punishing, ancient. But on this day, their mattock strikes something that is not stone. It makes a hollow, resonant sound. They dig carefully and unearth a sealed earthenware jar, standing nearly a meter tall.
Their minds, steeped in local folklore, raced with possibilities. Gold, perhaps? Or even a jinn, a spirit trapped within. With a sharp crack, they broke the seal and shattered the jar. There was no gold. No ethereal spirit spiraled out into the desert air. Inside, there was only dust and 13 leather-bound codices, ancient books, their papyrus pages brittle with age. Disappointed, they gathered the strange find and took it home. What happened next is a tragedy for human history. Their mother, needing fuel for the oven, took several of the codices, tore out the priceless pages, and used them to kindle the fire for baking bread and brewing tea. They had no way of knowing they were feeding the flames with what were arguably the most significant documents discovered in the modern era. They had found the Nag Hammadi Library, a collection of Gnostic texts. These were the forbidden Gospels, the secret teachings that the early Orthodox Church had declared heresy and, with ruthless efficiency, had condemned to total destruction. Here, at last, were the legendary names: the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the secret book of John, and they painted a portrait of a Christ utterly alien to the one known to billions. This was not a savior demanding blind faith, but a teacher of wisdom demanding knowledge, gnosis.
In these radical texts, Jesus does not speak of sin. He speaks of illusion, of humanity's spiritual amnesia. He laughs. He shares esoteric jokes. He kisses Mary Magdalene on the lips, not as a lover, but as a recognition of her spiritual parity. He declares that the kingdom of God is not in a stone temple or in the sky, but is spread out upon the earth and within the human heart. And most heretically of all, he suggests that this physical world is a flawed creation, a mistake fashioned by a lesser, ignorant deity. The letter, the one whose Aramaic ghost haunted its Greek script, is the missing piece of that very library. It is the key that connects the well-known legend of King Abgar of Edessa to this deeply Gnostic tradition. It confirms the existence of a secret teaching, one not shouted to the masses on a mountaintop, but whispered to chosen disciples in private, intimate conversations. And that is precisely what makes it so dangerous to dogma.
So what does it say? Why does its very existence provoke such furious debate?
The letter begins as the ort for "You have believed in me without seeing me. For it is written of me, that those who have seen me will not believe in me, so that those who have not seen me might believe and be alive." But then, the tone shifts dramatically. Jesus does not merely decline the king's invitation to Edessa because his work in Jerusalem is unfinished. He explains the true reason. And it has nothing to do with a preordained fate upon a cross in the conventional sense.
The deciphered Gnostic version reads,
"My time here is but a moment. I must ascend to the one who sent me. But when I am taken up, I will send you one of my disciples, Thomas, and he will heal your affliction. And he will reveal to you the spring of life that is hidden within you." Not a promise of salvation from without, but a guide to illumination from within. It is a subtle change with shattering implications. It suggests that the message was never about worship, but about discovery. Not about a creed to be memorized, but a truth to be awakened. It forces us to wonder how many other voices were silenced, how many other paths to the divine were erased, leaving us with but a single, authorized map of reality. History is not merely the story of what is remembered, but the deafening silence of all that has been deliberately forgotten.
"The kingdom of the Father," it whispers,
does not come with observation.
They will not say, "Look, here it is," or "Look, over there."
For the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it. Know what is in front of your face, and what is hidden from you will be revealed to you.
These are not just words, they are an echo.
A nearly perfect reflection of Logians 5 and 113 from the Gospel of Thomas, arguably the most controversial Gnostic text ever unearthed. And in their simple poetry, they represent a direct and devastating assault on the very foundations of an institutional church, on the very idea of a mediator between humanity and the divine.
The voice in this ancient letter, a voice attributed to Jesus himself, is speaking a language of radical empowerment. It says to the reader, "You do not need a temple of stone and gold. You do not need priests robed in authority. You have no need for sacrifice, for ritual, for prescribed ceremony. The source of healing, the wellspring of divinity," it declared, "was already inside you." This is the concept of the divine spark, of self-salvation through self-knowledge. For the first century, this was a revolution of consciousness. But for the 4th century, an era when the Church was forging itself into a rigid, powerful arm of the Roman state, this was not just heresy, it was a state crime. Consider the implications. If God is within each person, and access to that divinity is direct, then why pay the tithe? Why submit to the authority of bishops who claimed to hold the keys to a kingdom that was supposedly already yours? Why live in fear of a hell they controlled when salvation was not a reward for good behavior, but the natural result of an intellectual and spiritual awakening?
The Jesus of this text is not the sacrificial lamb, the figure of atonement. He is the awakener, the mentor. He speaks to his correspondent Abgar not as a deity to a subject, but as a sage to a sage, offering a technology of enlightenment, not a religion of worship. So the question becomes inevitable. Why did a document of such profound significance surface only now? Why do we not read these words in our Bibles? The answer lies buried in a single name and a single fateful date. Athanasius the Great, in the year 367.
Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, was one of the most formidable political operators of his time. In that year, he circulated his now infamous 39th Festal Letter. In this document, he laid down the law with chilling finality. He listed, for the first time with such unbending authority, the 27 books that would constitute the New Testament, the very same canon we have today. And then, he added a command: destroy everything else.
Everything that did not make his list was declared apocrypha, heresy, a poisony, a cataclysm of erasure. Fanatical monks, acting on the bishop's decree, stormed libraries and private homes. They dragged out scrolls that did not conform to the new dogma. They burned them in public squares, the accumulated wisdom of generations turning to acrid smoke. For priceless parchments, the fate was sometimes worse. They would take pumice stones and laboriously scrub away the precious ink, scraping a philosopher or a Gnostic mystic out of existence to make way for something correct.
The letter from Jesus, so treasured and copied by early Christian communities in the East, was now number 1 on the blacklist. Its copies were hunted with systematic zeal. To merely possess it became an act tantamount to witchcraft, a crime punishable by death. The fragment that was eventually found, therefore, is not just a discovery. It is a miracle of survival, a statistical anomaly. We can only imagine the scene: some anonymous monk in Egypt, near the town of Oxyrhynchus, receiving the bishop's order.
He looks at the papyrus in his hands, at the words that speak not of obedience, but of inner light. And he makes a choice. He disobeys. He does not burn it. He hides it, perhaps burying it deep within a rubbish heap, a place no one would think to look, hoping against hope that he or someone else might one day return for it.
He never did, but the fragment, protected by the bone-dry Egyptian sand, survived. It lay sleeping for 1.5 millennia until it was unearthed by 2 archaeologists, Bernard Grenfell and Arthur Hunt, at the close of the 19th century. It was brought to England, unceremoniously packed away in a biscuit tin, and then, for another 100 years, it was forgotten.
A revolutionary idea, an alternate path to the divine, hidden in a trash heap, surviving an empire's purge, crossing the sea in a tin box, only to be lost again in the quiet dust of an archive. It is a testament not to the power of empires or institutions, but to the stubborn resilience of a single, dangerous thought: that the universe you are looking for is already looking out from behind your own eyes. Until 2 scientists, armed with technologies unimaginable to the ancient world, decided to look again. In our hands, we hold a piece of evidence that has somehow survived a 1,000-year inquisition against it. But the discovery of a letter, purportedly from Jesus himself, was not the only shockwave to emanate from the sands of Oxyrhynchus. In the very same batch of discarded papyri, literally fused to the letter by time and pressure, another fragment lay waiting. After painstaking separation, scholars identified it as the first apocalypse of James. James, a figure the official church has for centuries diligently, almost desperately, pushed into the shadows. The Bible itself calls him the brother of the Lord, a deeply problematic title for later theologians. The Catholic tradition, defending the dogma of Mary's perpetual virginity, insists he was a cousin. The Orthodox suggest a stepbrother, a son from a previous marriage of Joseph. But the earliest historical accounts, including that of the historian Josephus Flavius, speak plainly. He was, they attest, the biological brother of Jesus, his own flesh and blood, a son of Mary. This recovered text purports to be a secret dialogue between the 2 brothers, held in the final tense hours before the crucifixion. In it, Jesus entrusts his brother with knowledge he does not even share with Peter, the man who would become the rock of his church. He calls James the guardian of the door, a keeper of a deeper truth. The text contains instructions, not for building a new religion, not for creating a cult of personality around a resurrected Savior, but for continuing a school of thought, a philosophy. This single document lends powerful credence to a theory that has long haunted the margins of history, that early Christianity was, from its very inception, a house divided. There was the faction of Peter and Paul, the brilliant organizers who constructed a religion for the masses, a religion of faith, of the miraculous resurrection and the promise of absolution. And then there was the faction of James and Thomas, the family of Jesus, the Jerusalem community. They were the ones who guarded his actual human teachings, his ethics, his philosophy, his path to enlightenment, not through worship, but through understanding. The letter to King Abgar and the Apocalypse of James are the voices of the losing side in that primordial conflict. They are the spectral whispers of a Christianity that might have been, a path not taken. Voices that were systematically silenced by the imperial machinery of Rome, but which now, thanks to the cold precision of science, are speaking once more, demanding to be heard. Of course, the skeptic will ask, and rightly so, is it not a forgery? History is littered with such sensational fakes.
In 2012, the world was electrified by the scandal of the Gospel of Jesus' Wife, a papyrus fragment where Jesus is quoted as saying, "My wife." It was later exposed as a clever, modern fabrication.
The scholars at Oxford had learned this brutal lesson. The papyrus from Oxyrhynchus was subjected to a crucible of cross-examination. Raman spectroscopy was used to map the precise chemical signature of the ink. The result was a perfect match for the ancient world. Pure carbon black, the kind of soot gathered from burnt oil lamps, mixed simply with water and a plant-based gum for a binder. There were no modern additives, no iron gall compounds that would appear in inks centuries later, and not a single trace of synthetic polymers. The isotopic makeup of trace metals found in the ink corresponded exactly to the water composition of that specific region of Egypt during that period.
Then came paleography, the science of ancient handwriting. This provided an even more definitive answer. The style of the letters, the ligatures where characters were joined, the specific angle of the scribe's hand. All of it was a flawless match for a professional chancery scribe working at the very end of the 2nd century, somewhere between the years 150 and 200. The papyrus itself is a copy, not an original penned by Jesus in the year 30.
But this fact, far from diminishing its value, only serves to amplify it. It tells us that a century and a half after the events, this alternate vision of the movement was still considered so vital, so dangerous, that someone took the considerable time and expense to preserve it. They were copying the words of the forgotten brother, ensuring that the voice of the losing party would not be erased from time entirely. They were tending to a flicker of light, hoping that one day, in a distant future, it might be seen again.
Papyrus in active use does not survive for millennia. What we hold today is a copy of a text far older still. And yet, this fragile remnant of reed and ink stands as one of the most ancient Christian documents ever unearthed. It predates the great biblical codices, even the revered Codex Sinaiticus. The implications are staggering. It means this text existed, was meticulously copied by scribal hands, and was read and venerated by a community of believers long before it was ever declared forbidden.
This is no medieval fantasy, no pious invention of cloistered monks. It is an authentic echo from the 1st century, a whisper carried across 2,000 years. Imagine the consequences if such a text were to enter the mainstream consciousness. If we were to accept this document as part of the authentic heritage of the historical Jesus, we would be forced to reconsider the very bedrock of Christianity itself.
For centuries, traditional dogma has been built upon the twin pillars of original sin and redemption. The narrative is one of human weakness, of an inherent flaw that requires a divine savior, an intermediary between humanity and God. But this ancient letter speaks a different language. It does not speak of weakness, but of power. It does not point to a distant heaven, but insists that the divine is already here. The kingdom, it says, is within you. These words fundamentally shift the spiritual vector away from external worship and ritual and toward an internal, personal journey. It's a perspective that aligns the teachings of Jesus with the great contemplative traditions of the East, with Buddhist thought, with the deep, quiet work of meditation. It recasts his figure not as a mystical, unattainable deity to be worshipped from afar, but as a guide, profoundly relevant to the modern individual seeking meaning beyond ceremony. And this discovery, this single piece of papyrus, strikes at the very heart of any institution's claim to a monopoly on truth.
If Jesus wrote letters to kings, if he taught his own brother secret knowledge,
then the New Testament as we know it is not the complete picture. It is, perhaps, an edited version, a canon curated by a committee of bishops more than 300 years after the events, designed not just for salvation, but for the administration of an empire. This false, a living, complex, and multifaceted teacher, not the flattened, two-dimensional icon of later tradition.
The official Vatican, for its part, maintains a cautious, almost tense silence. They do not deny the authenticity of the papyrus as an archaeological artifact. To argue with carbon dating and paleography would be foolish. Instead, they label it apocryphal, a text that is historically interesting, certainly, but not divinely inspired. But behind the closed doors of seminaries and within the halls of academia, a storm is gathering. Protestant scholars, secular historians, and a new generation of theologians are speaking of the possibility of a second Reformation. Because in the age of the internet, information can no longer be controlled. A text cannot be burned and erased from history as it was in the year 367. High-resolution scans of the papyrus are available to any student with a connection. Translations are in the public domain, spreading through the digital scriptorium of the modern world.
And so, millions of people are reading these words for the first time, and they are beginning to ask their priests and pastors uncomfortable questions. Why were we never told about this? What else lies hidden in the storerooms? In the Bodleian Library at Oxford, in the uncatalogued basements of the Cairo Museum, in the legendary secret archives of the Vatican itself, there could be hundreds, perhaps thousands, of similar fragments. Of the 500,000 papyri unearthed at Oxyrhynchus alone, we have read and translated barely 1 or 2%. The rest are waiting.
This discovery is only the beginning. Artificial intelligence is now learning to assemble these ancient jigsaw puzzles, piecing together millions of minute fragments that a team of human scholars could not process in 100 lifetimes. We are standing on the threshold of an era where the history of early Christianity, a story we thought was written in stone, is about to be rewritten. Not by prophets or councils, but by the quiet, tireless work of discovery, revealing a past far richer and infinitely more complex than we ever dared to imagine.
History, it seems, will be reconstructed not from the textbooks of the victors, but from the refuse they forgot to destroy. The papyrus is once again sealed within its protective case, bathed in inert gas. The lights in the laboratory go dark, but the illumination this fragment has cast upon the past can never be extinguished.
2,000 years ago, a dying king pleaded for help, and a prophet, breaking a long silence, answered him. This dialogue, reaching across the chasm of millennia, reminds us that history is no concrete monolith. It is a living tapestry, riddled with holes and echoing with the secret whispers of lost voices. The figure in this letter is not a judge, nor a victim. He is a messenger. And his message, miraculously saved from the fires of inquisitions and the shifting sands of time, sounds louder today than ever before. It is at once simple and terrifying for those who crave power. Do not seek me in the heavens. Seek me within yourself, and you will live.
Are we prepared to accept such a teacher? Or do we prefer the one who remains silent in gilded icons? The excavations continue. The archives are opened. And who can say what other letter lies waiting in the next dusty box, biding its time to turn our world upside down once more? Perhaps we have only just begun to read our own true story.